Hey everybody, it's Anna. Welcome back to my Fluid Art channel and thank you so much for stopping by. So a lot of painters use mica pigments in their artwork. It's a way of creating your own custom metallic colors out of mica powders, mica pigments. So some come in little containers, some of them like this little piggy come in much bigger containers. But because they're sparkly and shiny, you can create your own metallic paints. But there are different ways of mixing them. And on my channel, I've showed you a couple of ways of mixing them, but I have a new way today and I'm going to be comparing it. So there's a lot of people that do bloom pours, and mica pigments are very easy to mix into that because the bloom recipe, it has its own pouring medium and you can just add the pigments right into that. But for more standard acrylic pours like flip cups, Dutch pours, ring pours, that kind of thing, usually you start out with a paint and then you add something to that, but there has to be kind of that paint to start out with. So up until this point, to make that paint, I've used gloss gel, Liquitex Basics Gloss Gel medium, and that's, I think, more like the light body gel, not heavy body gel. But I've just recently learned about Pebeo Studio Acrylic Bindex, which is essentially the base paint that they use for their acrylic paint, but there's no pigment in it. And so I got some of that, and so I want to try that out with my mica pigments because I kind of know how it works with the gloss gel, and it's good for the most part, good for certain applications, not as good for other ones. So I want to compare it with this. So I'm going to mix up these two colors, each of them with both mediums, and then I'm going to do 2 pours to show you how those mediums work in a Dutch pour and in a flip cup. So I think it'll be really helpful and informative for all of us. So let's do it. I'm going to start out by mixing this tangerine color, and it is beautiful. So I have 2 cups here, and I've labeled my mixing sticks B and G for Bindex. Bindex will be on the right, gloss gel will be on the left. And I'm actually not going to do them both at the same time. So I'm using my scale to help me know what quantity I'm getting. I want to end up with about 1.5 ounces of my mixture. So with the gloss gel, I know I'm going to need more of that. So I'm going to start with, almost 1 ounce of gloss gel. Maybe not quite. Okay, 0.85 ounces. I'll wipe up my scale here so I don't make a mess. So there's my gloss gel. And then for Bindex, I want about the same amount. Okay, so this, you can see it's significantly softer than the gloss gel. You see that? It's much runnier. It's more like a white glue. And this is much more like a thick tube paint. I'm actually doing this one, which is blue-violet. This is going to be my Dutch pour. I was realizing as I was measuring that these measurements are better for my Dutch pour. So that's what I'm going to do. So then for each of these, I have 0.85 ounces of each one. So I'm going to add my mica pigment to both of these. I have the same amount of each. Now when you're working with mica powders, it's good to put on a mask of sorts, just because it's not great to breathe in the mica particles. I'm going to do, I can't fit my scoop in here. I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon in each one. So about 2 1/4 teaspoons. And my measuring is not terribly precise right here. So we'll get that just started to be incorporated here into the Bindex. And then I'll add some into the gel. Okay. Whew. That's probably the full amount that I need there. Okay, so that's in there. Then I'm going to use my wet wipe to pick up any remaining mica pigments and wipe off my measuring spoon. I don't need my mask anymore now that there's not loose powder in the air. So let's go ahead and mix these. So it will look a little bit clumpy at first. Some people say you have to disperse your mica pigments in like varnish or something thin before you add a thicker medium. I have never found that that's necessary, but I don't work with them as much as other people do. Right now I'm trying to make a nice thick paint that then I can do other things with. So I'm just going to mix it with the Bindex and the gloss gel. Okay, so that looks pretty well mixed. And I'll mix it a little bit more later. This one is so much thicker, my goodness. This one, you can see it's already shinier just because the gloss gel is glossier and clearer. The Bindex is also translucent, but it looks milkier just while it's wet. Okay, so those are my paints. This one I can tell is much softer. This is much firmer, so this one will take more water. The first way I'm going to mix my paints is with water for a Dutch pour. So I'm going to get my squeeze bottle and start adding some water, little by little, until I reach the right consistency. All right, that looks like a nice flowy consistency for a Dutch pour. So let's just look at my numbers. I started out with about 0.9 ounces of the gloss gel and mica pigment. I'm now about 1.4. So this was able to take about half its weight in water, again, to make a nice Dutch pour consistency. So now I'm going to add the water to my Bindex cup. For a more in-depth tutorial about how to mix your paints with water for a Dutch pour, you can follow the link that's popping up or find it down in the video description. Almost there. All right, that looks good too. Now, again, let me do my comparison. I started with 0.9 ounces of the Bindex plus the mica pigment. I'm now at 1.23. So this one I only added about 0.35 ounces of water in order to get it to a Dutch pour consistency. So the Bindex, not surprisingly, because it is much thinner than the gloss gel, it doesn't take as much water in order to get it to Dutch pour consistency. So there's those. Now it's time to do Tangerine. So I'm going to do it exactly the same way, but when I actually mix it to pouring consistency, I'm going to add Floetrol because it will be for a flip cup, not a Dutch pour. So let me get out my cups. Because when I use Floetrol in a pour, it's usually 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. If I'm making about 1.5 ounces of paint, I only need ½ an ounce of my actual paint. So I'm only going to put in ½ an ounce of the gloss gel. And then for Bindex, I'm going to put a little bit more because it's thinner. I think my mixing ratio is not going to be quite the same. So I'm going to do 0.6 ounces of Bindex. Time to put the mask back on and add the tangerine. This is such a beautiful, bright color. I love it. This would work better if I had a smaller scoop that could actually reach inside. All right, I'm just going to slowly mix to get it incorporated first. Wipe off my scale, wipe off my measuring spoon, and now I can take the mask off. All right, let's get this fully mixed up. Switch to this one for a minute. It's so thick. Right, a little bit more on this one because I still see a couple specks and clumps where it's not entirely incorporated. Okay, so I have 0.6 ounces and I have 0.5 ounces. And now I'm going to add Floetrol. So I have pre-strained my Floetrol. It is very important to strain your Floetrol before you mix it because sometimes it has specks in it, sometimes it has stringy blobs in it. This is pre-strained, so I can just put it in small amounts. We're going to shoot for about 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol, though with the Bindex I'm going to do a little bit less than that because I think it's pretty thin anyway. But 1 to 2, or 2 to 1, depending on which way you say it, is not a bad ratio even for a thin paint. Okay, so this would be a 1 to 1 ratio. And let's see how it flows without any water. So already we've got a pretty thick flow, but I'm going to add more, and I will add some water as well. Okay, so this is about 1.5 parts Floetrol to 1 part paint. And because of the size of my cup, I don't have space for a whole lot more. If I had a bigger cup, I might add a little bit more, but I don't need to. That's a pretty good consistency, like it's a nice thick stream, and with just a little bit of water added to that, it'll be perfect. Because I want this to be a medium thin consistency for my flip cup. All right, so it's flowing well, but it's still stacking up in quite a mound, so I'm going to add some more water. Okay, that looks nice. It makes a soft mound, so I'm really happy with that consistency. Great. Now let's add Floetrol to our gloss gel. So this one, because it's so thick, I'm just starting with a little bit to get that work together before I add a larger amount, because I don't want my paint to clump up and have trouble mixing. And this will definitely get at least 2 parts Floetrol to the 1 part of paint. Possibly more on a really thick paint like this. Sometimes I do 3 to 1, but I don't know that I have space for that in my cup. Okay, at this point, once I get this mixed in, it'll be 2 to 1. 1 ounce of Floetrol and 1/2 ounce of my paint, which will probably be where we stop and then we add water, but I'll show you what that consistency is. Wow, it's still quite thick. So I could add more Floetrol. If I had a bigger cup, I would add another part of Floetrol, but it's also okay to just add water if you need to thin something more rapidly. Okay, this is close. We got a soft mound. It's not flowing quite as well as the Bindex paint. I'm going to add a little bit more water, but I think our consistency is just about there. Great. Yep. There it is. Nice and flowy. Leaves a soft mound, soft trail. I think it's good. Okay, so I have my Dutch pour in blue violet. I have my flip cup mixed with Floetrol in tangerine. Let me quickly reset my table, get my canvases, get my other colors, and then we'll make 2 paintings. All right, this is going to be my flip cup. Lovely sort of springy, fruity colors. And then this is my Dutch pour. It's a little unusual colors. It's going to have a green background and then some other colors in a flow. I'm going to try to do a twist. So for my Dutch pour, which I'm going to do first, I'm going to have the Pebeo Bindex in the top half of the flow and the gloss gel in the bottom half of the flow. That way we'll be able to compare how they both work, but just do it on one painting. So let me start by putting out some of my green base coat. This is olive green mixed with some white. Let's see how well it flows. Okay, it does flow, but I need more paint on the canvas. So I'm sure you can tell my paint's just a little bit thick for blowing on the cool, not the cool setting. I always use the cool button, but the low setting, it's moving. It's just not moving really fast. I always prefer to use the low setting on my hairdryer so that it's more controlled. And if your paint is thin enough, it works fine. If your paint is too thick, sometimes you have to use the high setting. So for my color flow, I'm going to do a diagonal line this way, and then I'm going to, well, you'll see how I do it when I blow it out, but I'm going to start with a diagonal line. And I'm not sure actually that I'm going to use black. I have black paint, but I want sort of earth tones with a twist. So get some brown in there, and then a nice dark navy, some white. And yeah, let's do just a little bit of black. And then I have a metallic magenta. That's one of my sort of surprise colors. And then the blue violet is the other surprise color. So I'm gonna blow up and over this way, and then I'm gonna blow down and over this way, and that's how I'm gonna get the twist. So I want a little bit more color up on this end. So I'm going to add a bit more of the brown. Well, I'm going to add a little brown over here because I already have brown up there. But I'll add some navy up here, white in both places, because I want there to be brightness, especially on the darker background. We'll do the opposite down here. I haven't done a ton of Dutch twists, so I'm not super knowledgeable about the best way to add the colors, but I think this will look pretty good. So I'm just having the magenta down the middle. I'm not, same with the black. Not adding more to the side because I don't want as much of those colors. Now it's time for our pop of blue violet. This will just be in the top half, but I want enough that we can really see how it's working. So that's with Bindex. This is the gloss gel. Oh wow. Okay, so you can already see. Can you see how clear that is? Gloss gel is dense, so this has almost disappeared. It's sinking down into the other colors, whereas the Bindex is much lighter and it's sitting on top. So that'll be interesting to see as we blow it out. Do I find that underneath, or has it just been lost forever? But here's our layout. I'm gonna put just a little bit more green here on the front side so I can blow over it, and a little bit on this side where it's coming, but I want to save at least a few drops of green for doing other stuff afterwards, touch-ups, edges, etc. Alright, let's go ahead and blow this. Well, that's really cool. It's very ethereal and swoopy. Let me come down and do this side. Wow, I'm getting tons of cell effects over here. So I'm not sure what that's from. There's like none up here. That's weird. But my lines are strange, so let me fix those. Okay, even that's a little better. Super interesting. Okay, so I think because I added the green, like, it's all faded out. But what I can do is I can sort of pull in here. I think I can create my own little twist. I don't love that twist. Not sure what to do because I don't like my center. Let me just make another little pocket and extend it this way and that way. So instead of lines, we'll do, you know, kind of like a puddle, but not a really solid puddle. And then if it works well on top, I'll do the same thing on the bottom. A lot of white there. Okay, and the Pebeo Bindex Blue Violet. All right, let's blow that out, see how it looks. That's really pretty. Okay, I am gonna do the same thing down here, and then it might be kind of tied together by that little string in the middle, and that would be cool too. I don't think I added any black over there. Whoops. I will add some black down here though. And then on this side, it is the gloss gel base. All right, let's blow that out. Cool. So once again, we have lots of cell reaction. All right, so let me try to get this center twist looking a little bit cooler. And that might be something that works best with a brush afterwards. Yeah, it's gonna work best with a brush because I can't get everything to twist perfectly. But I think that'll be a really cool element in the middle, kind of a little, almost a tree trunk connecting the two halves. So I really like that. Gonna get a little bit more dark over my corners where it didn't blow out all the way. Okay, let me set this one aside so that I can do the flip cup. Actually, I'm going to torch really quick. Flip cup time! Alright, so for the flip cup, it's going to be 2 flip cups because I have to have one with each tangerine. So again, I'm going to have the Bindex mix on top and the gloss gel mix on the bottom. So let me layer up these cups and I will try to do them both about the same. These colors are very citrusy. I don't want tons of this turquoise color, but I did want some contrast and not just have it be pastel pinks and oranges. Oh, almost put the wrong tangerine in. That would have been a disaster. Not a disaster, it just would have wrecked my experiment. Which would be a disaster. Okay, a little bit more white. Okay, these are looking so great. So this is going to go on top, Bindex on top, gloss gel on the bottom. Nice. Oh, those colors are looking so pretty already. Okay, so I'm going to pull sort of diagonally this way and that way, and then we'll tilt it to stretch. Ooh, so much green. All right, let's pull this other one. Amazing. Let me give this a torch, make some cells, and then we'll stretch. So the torching pops some air bubbles. If you do it now, then those air bubble cells have a chance to grow. Okay. Just get our puddle moving a bit here. All right, we'll head up to this corner first. Okay, quickly pull it back. Cover the close corner before we go back to the far corner. Great. Okay, last corner. This is so pretty. I love that diagonal band that I got from the 2 flip cups. Just getting it kind of centered how I want it to be. Yeah. Super cool. That is so dreamy. The only bad thing about it is there's not a whole lot of the tangerine, you know, showing strongly where I can say, ah yes, here's how it behaves in this, and here's how it behaves in this, because we've got this nice band of tangerine, but I'll have to go back and watch the replay to know which cup was this band from. I think what we've seen from this one is that both of them work well for a flip cup. For this one, it was easier to see the difference. The gloss gel was a much heavier density, and the Pebeo Bindex is a much lighter density. So it'll be interesting to see how these dry, because sometimes the gloss gel leaves texture, so we'll look for texture in here when it dries. But I think the quick takeaway is that both the gloss gel and the Bindex can work for mixing your mica pigments into, but you might use one versus another one based on what exactly you're doing. But 2 really beautiful pieces of art, so I'm very happy about that. Let me give you close-ups of both. Okay, these are so different. Let's start with the Dutch pour first. So I'll be doing some touch-ups to the middle there. So we have a beautiful flow here. It's hard to tell exactly what is the gray or the blue violet. I think that's some of it right there, and some of it there. Once it's dry, we'll see the shimmer more. And then down here, look at all that cell reaction. It's just crazy. Perhaps too crazy. And then over here we've got those giant black cells. That's because it's the Creative Inspirations Lamp Black, which is, that's a low density paint too. And I will fix that a bit when it's dry. I'll just touch it up and make it look more natural there. But yeah, so that's really interesting. But I do love that overall. It's really cool. It's like a tree. And then over here, this is just dreamy. It's like it's summer and you've gone to get a popsicle or something. So we got that nice diagonal band running through there. So that's the tangerine. It'll look beautiful. I like these layers here that you can see kind of underneath that top layer of green. It's a really interesting effect. And then up here, the little tiny sort of air bubble cells that have come up. Some little rainbow air bubble cells in there. Really cool. Okay, so let me let these dry and then I'll come show you how they look and talk about what we've learned. Okay, they're dry. Let me show you the Dutch pour first. So it was giving off major sort of magical tree vibes, so I did a few little touch-ups, like painting the trunk brown, just to tie that together and make it look really tree-like. So it's super pretty. You can see that bluish violet, blue-violet, what's the color? Blue-violet. You can see it shining in there in little pockets. Down here you can also see it shining. So clearly it worked in both mediums in terms of making a metallic paint. But down here you see there's so many more cells. Now some of those cells I think are caused by the black paint, which has a low density, so it wants to rise. It's a light paint. So up here we have some cells that I think are also caused by the black. But down here we have a lot more cells. So I think the gloss gel as a medium probably produces more cells because of its heavier density. Light density and heavy density both can make cells when combined with your other paints. Now the other thing is, you see this texture? That's one of the ways that you know that your densities are not all the same. When you have a paint that's heavier than your other paints, it'll sink down to the bottom layer as you pour it out, and then when you blow the paint, that one won't move as much as the others because it's already like hanging out at the bottom of the canvas. So when you see those blobs, there are a few up here too, then it just means your densities aren't all the same. And sometimes you want that, because different densities can create beautiful cells for you. But sometimes having densities that are too different than each other can cause trouble. So there's a lot less texture up here on top than there is down below, and I think that's the gloss gel that's adding a lot of that texture. So moving on to this one, it is just so pretty. I mean, look at these little cells. Look at those perfect rings. I just think that's so cool. It's probably because I stacked my cup really neatly, and then air bubbles from kind of a low level. Once I did the flip cup, paints that were down kind of underneath all the stack, when air bubbles popped, it rose up through all those other layers of color, making those amazing layered cells. Now here in this band, the tangerine that's here, I looked back through the video, that is from the top cup, which is the Bindex cup, not down here. This was the gloss gel. But for this type of application, I don't think Bindex versus gloss gel matters all that much if you're mixing it with Floetrol or some other pouring medium. They'll both probably work for you just fine. However, in a Dutch pour, especially a paint and water Dutch pour, densities are much more important. Consistencies and densities, they factor in a lot more than with other pours. So based on whether you're using light density paints or heavy density paints, you might choose gloss gel or Bindex, or perhaps even a mix of the two in order to make kind of a medium density base. But I hope that was helpful for you guys. I know it was helpful for me. Thank you for joining me for this Mica Pigment base paint comparison video. I hope it inspired you to try something new, and maybe taught you a little bit more about paint density than you thought you needed to know. I can't wait to see you all in the next video. Bye guys!